Today we're going to do a couple things. We're going to talk about some of the new artificial intelligence capabilities of Adobe, specifically in Photoshop. And we're also going to talk a little just about sketch optimization. And it's both fairly short topics, so I figured to loop them in, and also they're a little bit relevant to one another. Now, as you probably saw on your mood board project, on the project or assignment description, you're allowed to use generative AI for this project. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the generative AI functions in Adobe Photoshop. They're fairly new, whereas most of the Photoshop versions that you'll see all the way back, even 20 years, look pretty much the same and have the same functionality, same tools. This is new, and you'll find it on the newer versions of Photoshop. And it will automatically pop up when you start your file in Photoshop. So if you're wondering what this little guy down here was doing, that is your AI taskbar. Now, a lot of times it just sort of gets in my way, so I just go to the little 3 dots on the right and hide the bar. If you've done that, you can always grab it back by going to Windows, going all the way down, and it's called the contextual taskbar. And it'll pop right up. Now let's see how it works. First, we can generate a full image. So if I go here, I can generate an image. So since we're working on mood board, let's see what it creates. We can type in the colors that we want, although we can't be terribly specific, but we can always go in and alter colors a little bit later on. And we have to think of our aesthetic themes as well. I'll just say aquatic theme. That might be a little bit vague. Again, try again. Try to pick out, and they say to be as specific as possible. Let's say let's throw some mermaids in there too. All right, so I'm being pretty general. I'm just sort of coming up with something off the top of your head. But let's see what it comes up with. So my experience is sometimes it works really, really well, and sometimes it really, really doesn't. All right, that's not too bad. I like it. I think it could be a really great either incorporated image within your mood board, or a sort of background for your mood board, or even for your sketches. So it looks pretty nice. I like it. Let's try it again. And again, I encourage you guys, since you have access to it, to go ahead and play around with it as well. So it will also fill in specific selections. So say you have a background or image or collection of images that you like for your mood board, and you just want to add. So if you use your rectangular marquee tool, the rectangular selection tool, it will fill in just this area. So now that I have that area that I have selected, I can go over here to generative fill, and I can type in my prompt right here. Say I have I have something in my head that would go really well with my theme. I don't know, this is what the color palette I just want to go to. Once you have your prompt, you're going to go ahead and just hit enter. And cross your fingers that it does what you want. A little bit more illustrative than I want. I kind of was hoping it would do a sort of real life and you get that wonderful light. Let's see if I can adjust my prompt to get what I want. I'm going to add that photo or real image to try to prompt it to go the way I want to. That's better. That's more what I was thinking of. Oh, it's cute. So if you want to go ahead and utilize this, I do think you should. It works very well at generating images from scratch, from prompts. So if you have, some fantastical image in your head, like a stained glass teapot or something like that, it beats scouring the internet for images. And again, you can assign colors to it. So sometimes you find a really great image for your mood board, but it's just not the right colors. And of course, we can change those colors in Photoshop, but we can go ahead and just create whatever we want. So it's as you can see, it's very, very good at just sort of generating an image from scratch. It is not very good, however, at altering images the way you want. For example, let's pop on over. This picture should seem familiar to you guys. You guys were all working on it last week, and you say, wow, I wonder if I could simply ask the AI to retouch this image for you. Well, I encourage all you guys to try. I will mention there is a so not only do we have those generative options in our AI taskbar, or contextual taskbar as they say, they also have this, which is very, very handy. It's the select subject. So you probably watched the mood board video before this, and we talked about all the different ways you can make selections, and this will work really, really well for objects on a clear background. And again, we also had that, the color selection, and then reverse the selection worked really well, but this works even faster than that. And this works very, very well. So if I click it and I ask it to select the subject, it will select her. Haha. Very well, I might add. So very good way to select objects, but it really works best. You see she's on that very plain sort of gray background. If it's a busy background, it's not going to work as well. It doesn't pick it out quite as well. Your selection might need some editing, but it's probably a good place to start. Now here I can ask the generative fill to maybe make some of those photo edits that I wanted in our first assignment, that portrait retouch. Remember, we learned how to sort of make a filter layer to smooth out the skin. So I'm just going to be very simple, and I'm going to ask her it just to smooth the skin of the model. But as you'll see, it doesn't really like to use the images that are already there. It likes to make its own stuff. So yes, we have a model with quite smooth skin, but alas, it is something completely different. A completely different person, completely different pose, and for some reason it thought that she should also be naked. So, as mentioned, this is really great. So this is really why I am introducing it here into the mood board, because it's not really very good yet, unfortunately, at doing those small edits, those little body retouches, those photo portrait retouches. Those we still have to, either get a good filter application, which can be a bit clunky, and nowadays a lot of times the filters, like the Instagram filters, they look like Instagram filters, but we can do a more natural job using the old style Photoshop techniques and have a little bit more control on how edited it looked like. We can still get a lot of that natural look out of the model in the photo without altering it and blurring it to heck and, just making it look too fake. So, as you can see, the selection works very well. The select subject, the remove background actually works pretty well too. It depends on how integrated the background is and sort of the color contrast between the subject and the background. But I found that it works pretty well. This works best. This works pretty well. The adjust colors, it doesn't do it automatically. It really just kind of, I don't know what this does, and then it just brings up the levels, an abbreviated levels that in the image adjustments that we went over in that video as well. But you can play around with it as well if you like. Let's say that's fine. And, play around with the other properties here too. I guess they even have a little quick video if you'd like to see how you can use all your options on the contextual taskbar. So definitely I would play around with it. You don't have to, but it is very conducive to helping to fill out your mood board. You can create some really interesting images that way, some very intriguing images. You might have something in mind, some, beautiful image, some very provocative image in your mind that you want to use for your mood board. And previously we would go ahead and scour the internet to try to find the closest image that we can find. But now you can just ask Photoshop to make it for you. And what it comes up with is usually pretty good. Play around with it. It can do other things. I've used it to extend backgrounds. So if I have a particular image that I want the background to extend, I don't want to stretch it. It's not quite the right proportions, let's say, to fill the space I want it. I've used it to extend out, and I will say, don't be afraid to ask it weird things. And like I said, sometimes it'll work like a dream, and sometimes you just get a completely different thing, just something random and bizarre and unusable. But, it's worth the try. As you can see, it just takes a few seconds to generate, so it's worth it to just try the options. Okay, last but not least, I'm just going to pop over here. So in your mood board project, you're going to go ahead and incorporate this sketch somehow in your mood board. And it could be very simple, where you just sort of rectangular marquee the sketch and drop it in. But while I'm here and while we're utilizing this, I want you to utilize this sketch because a lot of you are going to be digitizing your own sketches, and I want to show you how to optimize what the sketch looks like and other things in Photoshop that you can do to add to the sketch and just generally make it look the best that it can. Okay, so I have this image of a sketch, and it's the same one that you have, and to be quite frank, it's not very good, and it's not very good on purpose because I want you guys to use some of that photo editing techniques that we learned in the previous week to help this sketch look its best. And just like before when we went and did the portrait retouch and the full body edit, the first thing we really went and did is we did some image adjustments. So we went to image, we went to adjustments, and you guys know I like working with levels, so I'm going to pop over to my levels. We talked about this on the portrait, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my levels a little bit to show you guys even just a little bit of level adjustment, how it can look. We can make it look a lot better. I can brighten up that background, make those whites really pop, make her black shoes and hair nice and dark and rich, and everything else. So, all right, it's already looking a little bit better, so I'm going to say okay. Now, it's still a little shady in the corners, but as long as I select those out, that should be fine. So say I select her out, and then I can drop her into my mood board, again, using my selection tool or move tool. Don't forget to click these. I think even at the it took 20 years for Photoshop to automatically click on show transform controls for the mood board, because as soon as I open up Photoshop, if it's not clicked, I clicked it and then I never unclick it. I don't know why it should ever even have an option to unclick it. But after, I think, 30 years of being in the business, they finally realized that this should automatically be clicked. So I think on the newer versions, this is automatically clicked. If you're using an older version of your own, just make sure if you're not seeing those bounding boxes when you click it, that you got that guy little clicked. Okay, anywho, so we've eliminated those sort of dark areas and was able to get a sort of nicer display for my sketch. But that's not all I can do. Of course, I can go ahead if I come back here and I can make any sort of digital edits that I want. So if I zoom in, you can see, she doesn't have any color in her eyes. It looks a little weird. So we can go ahead and we can add little images and color and things like that, just like we could with our portrait. So if I go ahead and maybe I want to put a color in her eyes, I can use my brush the same way we kind of added a little bit of makeup in our portrait. Get a nice tiny brush size. I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit so it blends in better. And then let's give her some nice brown, maybe a nice little hazel brown. And we can put in just a little bit of color so it doesn't look so weird. Just get some nice brown eyes. Always leave a white spot. You see I'm leaving a little bit of these white spots right in here. That's really important for the eyes. It's a little bit of what we call eye shine. And it makes her look a little bit less like a doll, let's say. Gives it a little bit of life. You do want them to be even, so that one's a little smaller, so I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. So we leave that little bit of eye shine. Nice. We can also go ahead and let's say I want to, something that might be hard to draw, like a gemstone. I can pop here and find something. Maybe I want a flower or a diamond, or let's say, something fancy or something like that. So trying to think of something, let's say a jade rose. Oh, it's a person. Okay. Okay, this is what I was thinking of. So I'll take a look here. Again, I'm going to try to find something with... Oh, that's pretty. Maybe I want to use this. So I'd come over. I'm actually going to open it up in its own thing. So I can use that. Oops, sorry. We'll go to new. I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the other videos. If you have something on your clipboard and choose clipboard from file new, it will create a file that is exactly the size. So here I'm going to select subject. I'm going to use that handy dandy select subject tool, and it selected it pretty well. It didn't select this area in here, so I do have to do a little bit if I want the whole thing. So again, I'll go to use a selection tool, and I will add to my selection right here, and just incorporate that into the selection. All right, so I'm going to copy this, bring it into here, use my move tool to scale it down to a size that I might want. And again, this would be very difficult to draw, especially at this tiny size. But let's say now I have it here, and it will look, quite nice. It'll look precisely as I wanted it to. So again, you can bring in those different elements. And what I really, really like to use Photoshop for, and I'm a traditional media kind of gal. I do my most of my sketching in traditional media. That's changing. A lot of students now and young designers are using sketching apps and things like that, which is perfectly fine. However, you make your drawings. Also, at the end of the day, if it's clean and clear and looks good and it gets your ideas across, that's perfectly fine. But I will say one thing about traditional media is it can be very, very annoying when you have to draw something like this. Paisley's very busy prints with lots of colors and small areas. It's very time consuming. It's very difficult. So what I like to do is I like to apply those in Photoshop. So what I did is I found the fabric swatch that I want. I like this one. I think it's a good example too because it's very, very busy. It's very, very detailed. It would be very difficult as well as very time consuming to render this by hand using traditional methods. But if I go ahead and select it, bring it over here, paste it in. Now I do want to shrink it down. Remember that typically when we see swatches like that, they are in real size, let's say. So actual size, where she is a lot smaller. So I want to shrink it down so it will be real size for her, which is much tinier. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to just to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to select the skirt because I want this skirt to be this paisley. And I'm going to go ahead and use my pen tool selection that we learned about in that mood board video. So I'm just going to make a quick selection here. I don't like, let's curve that a little bit more. There we go. And again, Zoom is your friend. It is your friend. You'll hear me say that a couple times. More than a couple. All right, so I'm going to have to go back and fix that guy with white arrow, but that's okay. Fix a few of these. And I'll leave that as a shadow. Need print in there. All right, almost done. Oop. All right, and I'm just going to use my white arrow to fix that one line down here that kind of looped out a little farther than I wanted it to. Shrink that back down to size. Whoop. There we go. That looks good. And we're going to make this a selection just like we learned in that last video by going to our paths, finding our work path, right-clicking, and making the selection. I'm going to feather it a little bit just so we don't get too choppy in some areas. I'll give it a feather radius about 5. That's usually my go-to feather radius. It can depend a lot on the resolution you're doing too. Then I'm going to go here and I'm going to choose my clone stamp tool. Now the clone stamp will go ahead and sample specific areas like right in here and then paint from there. So this is kind of a small swatch. It'd be better if it would be a little bit bigger, but we'll see what I can do. But I'm going to hold down the Alt key. You can see that once I have that clone stamp tool and I hold down the Alt key, it changes to this like bullseye. And that is where we specify where we would like to sample from. And I want to sample from this swatch, so I'm going to click on it. You can see I'm kind of even bringing that swatch over here. And then I can go ahead and simply start drawing in, click and hold down for the button. And because I've selected this area, I can't paint out of it, so I don't have to be super careful about it. I do have to be careful because once I reach the end of the swatch over here, my sample area is going to go away. So I have to sort of resample. See? Whoop, went away. So I kind of have to resample and be careful that I'm picking up sort of different areas that aren't going to look too choppy. But I can sort of continue going with my very complicated pattern here. And I don't know how many of you have gone ahead and tried to create or draw a paisley pattern with traditional medium, but if you have, and I have, you will particularly appreciate how fast and easy this is. And for sure, it is. Now be careful, there will be areas like here, since we're using 100% opacity for this, that I'm going to be erasing out, as you can see, that line. Now we can always go back and put in line or shadow with our line tools, so on and so forth. So maybe let me just go ahead and actually, if there is a break here, we should have a break in the pattern. Sorry about that. So I'm going to allow the pattern to break there. That'll actually make our flare look more realistic. Oh, I lost it. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but again, you'll see larger swatch will allow you to work faster, so it is always better. But if you did want to go ahead and put that drape line in again, we do have a line tool. We can create sort of simple shapes and lines. So right down here, I could go ahead and simply put in, click and drag. Got used to sort of illustrators. I'm going to just click and drag a sort of drape line that comes up, and we can adjust the color right here. And I do want it thinner. Maybe not that thin. And I certainly don't want it to be dashed. But if you wanted top stitch, that would be great for it. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, and so you get your drape line back into your image just like that. Okay, so that's about all I have for you today. It's a little combo video of generative AI in Adobe Photoshop specifically, and also how to optimize or change your sketch using Adobe Photoshop. You don't have to put in a pattern on this sketch's skirt, but if you so choose to, feel free. Maybe changing the skirt will make it blend better or mesh better with your idea of the mood board. And again, feel free to make any other alterations to the sketch that you want. That's the whole idea, and can't wait to see your work. All right, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.